This video is brought to you by Mint Mobile. So this is the OnePlus 11. I just want to do a quick review of the phone. Is it still worth it in 2024? Short answer is absolutely yes. It's still a solid purchase going into this new year. So let's go ahead and talk about why. So first up, pricing, because you want to make sure you buy this on a sale. You want to make sure you're saving at least 20 to 25% off of what it originally cost, which is normally $699 or $799 depending on the model that you get. I've seen it for as low as $599 for the base model and then $629 for the second tier model, which at that point just get the second tier model, no brainer, extra 30 bucks. So personally, I think you should be spending around that amount. So if you're looking in the mid-range flagship to just not quite flagship level of spending yet, this is somewhere in there. Now, of course, the OnePlus 12 was pretty much already announced and released. I'm not sure of the pricing as of the recording of this video for the US. So if it's a little bit more expensive, just get the OnePlus 12 in my opinion. You're probably going to be spending an extra $200 or so. But if you're going to be spending an extra $300 plus, the OnePlus 11 might still be a phone to consider. So getting into the hardware and design, I personally think this is one of the most comfortable devices to hold in the hand. It's just very lightweight. It weighs well around 205-ish grams, so it feels pretty light in the hand. And the ergonomics of it, there's a different type of aspect ratio to it. I believe it's like a 20:9 aspect ratio on the display, but the dimensions of it are just a little bit slimmer compared to, say, an S23 Ultra or the S24s, the Pixels. It's just a little bit slimmer, so in your hand it feels a little bit easier to grip around and pretty much hold and wrap your whole fingers around. Now, of course, I have massive hands, so I can easily wrap my hand around it. It does feel a little bit tall though, just because it still is a 6.7-inch diagonally display. So it does feel a little bit tall, and it might be just a little bit tough to reach those top angles when you're using your thumb or using one hand. But the look itself, I think it looks pretty neat. It's a pretty seamless looking device. The camera bump is in a circular form, and you got this frame, the aluminum frame, that doesn't necessarily blend itself perfectly into the sides. It's got like a little bit of a cutoff there, but for the most part, it looks elegant. It's got the glossy finish. You do have Corning Gorilla Glass 5 on the back, and the texture that it has is somewhat odd for me. I don't know. You could probably hear it through the mic. It's got some texture to it, so it feels a bit weird, and I'm not a huge fan of the way it feels. And this is only on the black colorway. If you get the green colorway, you do get a glossy finish, and it might just feel like traditional glass. The front glass is Corning Gorilla Glass Victus, and when you get the device, you do get a pre-installed screen protector. It is plastic, but it does come pre-installed, and I personally kept it on for pretty much the last 10-11 months. I did just take it off a couple weeks ago, and it still has a pristine display, so I have like no scratches on the actual glass itself, but the plastic screen protector had a ton of scratches, which personally I typically tend to apply screen protectors on my devices just because of those small minor scratches. Glass may be more durable and stronger, but they do tend to scratch up pretty easily, so that's why I always try to install a screen protector. Now, of course, this display is a curved display, so I'm glad it did come with a pre-installed one, because I personally do not like installing screen protectors on a curved display, just because they can either become difficult to install, or the process itself is difficult to install, or you have to spend a little bit extra to get those special tempered glass ones that are curved, and I just would rather just keep it bare and keep it as it is. So again, I am happy that OnePlus does actually install a pre-installed plastic one on the actual display. And just talking about the display now, I already mentioned how it's got like a pretty different aspect ratio compared to other devices. It's a 20:9 aspect ratio, so again, feels tall and also feels a little bit slimmer. The only issue with that is you will have just slightly, ever so slightly thicker black bars when you're watching a video on YouTube per se. If you're watching a movie, something that's a little bit wider, you may see a little bit less black bars, but besides that, honestly, you're going to be getting a great viewing experience on the OnePlus 11. It's still a 1440p display, LTPO3 fluid AMOLED display, peak nittage of up to 1300 nits with a peak refresh rate of 120 Hz. So it's still a flagship display, very much. And you only get a single camera cutout in the corner. I do wish it was centered. I think the OnePlus 12 has it centered. Everyone has their own opinion on that though, because some people prefer it being in the corner, but either way, it is in the corner on the OnePlus 11. You've got minimum bezels for the most part. They're not quite even yet on this phone yet, but they're still pretty minimum and don't get in the way or become distracting. And as I mentioned, 1300 nits of brightness doesn't make it the brightest display on the market currently, because every phone nowadays, for some reason, they just want to bump up that peak brightness, which is good. Don't get me wrong, because if you're in a bright, sunny environment and you have a lot of light around you, you want to have a bright display to be able to use your phone properly. The OnePlus 11, it's still doable. It still gets the job done, and a bright day, you still will be able to use it. But you will see, compared to someone else's phone potentially, that it's not as bright. So if that's a concern to you and you want the brightest display possible, then obviously the OnePlus 11 probably not might be the way to go. But I still think it gets the job done. I personally have to keep my display in a more natural tone colored, but you are able to set it to a more vivid color and you get a decent overall good quality experience. You do have different features to be able to customize your display, including the color, but also use something called a natural tone. So it's basically similar to the iPhone's True Tone display setting that basically changes the color temperature of the display based on the lighting environment that you're in. You do also have the ability to use the eye comfort shield. Now, I do wish that the eye comfort shield could be scheduled based on the sunset and the sunrise. Currently, you can only set it to be a certain time period. And a feature that I really like that OnePlus includes with their displays is the ability to set it to auto select the resolution. So if you wanted to automatically just pick the resolution for you based on what you're doing on your device. I don't know how accurate it works, and to be honest, I don't notice a difference much when it switches from 1080p to 1440p. I honestly don't even realize when it's in those different modes. Like, it could be right now in 1440p or 1080p, and I probably wouldn't notice. I just set it to that mode, and personally, I don't even realize that it may or may not be switching to the actual resolution that I expect it to switch it to. And personally, I think the speakers sound pretty good. I use this to listen to music while I'm working out, and I have no issue setting it to about 75 to 80 or 90%, and don't have to set it to 100% full to get a full good experience. And the haptics are also really good on OnePlus 11. In my opinion, one of the best phones to get if you want really good haptics and also the ability to kind of tweak them a little bit. You do have the option between a gentle and crisp feel. I personally prefer the crisp feel. And I really like that they include a demo video that pretty much just shows off the haptics right there and then for you. That makes it very easy for you to get a feel for if you do like either the crisp, the gentle, and how intense you want the haptics. But I really like the haptic system on the OnePlus 11. And OnePlus is known for their alert slider, which is included on the OnePlus 11. So you do have the ability to quickly use a physical slider to switch between silent, ring, and vibrate. And the phone is IP64 water resistant and dust resistant, so it's good against dust, but water is only for splashes. So I personally have splashed it here and there when I'm either washing dishes and I have the phone nearby, or I poke it in and out of the shower when I'm watching a video, or I'll just splash it for B-roll as you're seeing here. And it's been surviving just fine, but of course take it with a grain of salt because it may not survive being submerged in water. And you do have a physical SIM card slot down at the bottom. It is able to take 2 SIM cards, so if you want to have 2 separate numbers connected to the device or use it as a phone to travel around with, you could definitely do that with this device. And that brings me to today's video's partner, Mint Mobile. So if you haven't heard of Mint Mobile, they offer one of the best bang for the bucks when it comes to wireless. They don't take advantage of you. They give you the best that they have to offer for as low as $15 a month. You don't have to sacrifice speed, coverage, or data because they're built on the largest 5G network. I've been a Mint Mobile customer for the last 3 years, so I haven't had to worry about when that next big bill is coming from my big carrier because Mint Mobile offers very low prices when it comes to their services. You do have the ability to just easily set yourself up online because Mint Mobile actually doesn't have any physical retail stores, which nowadays is fantastic because you can easily just order an eSIM and just easily set that up on the OnePlus 11 or whatever phone you have. Or if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, you still are able to get a physical SIM card shipped out to you for free. And Mint Mobile also does offer a modern family plan with as little as 2 lines. And that is exactly what my family does. Everyone here in this household is switched over to Mint Mobile and they have one of those family plans. And everyone's been having a pretty good experience when it comes to their everyday activities, whether it be phone calls, messages, using the internet with their mobile data. They don't notice a difference doing their everyday stuff, whether it be on Wi-Fi or on their mobile data. So enough is enough. Don't let the big wireless carriers take advantage of you anymore. Sign up with Mint Mobile using my link down below, trymintmobile.com/taco tech, or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get yourself started. It really does help out the channel when you use my link, so thank you, and let me know down in the comments if you made the switch. Now, as far as performance, you are getting last year's Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with either 8 or 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM, and then 128 gigabytes of storage, which is using UFS 3.1. Or if you get the 256 model, you do get UFS 4.0. So it's just a difference in the speed and write speeds. So does that matter to you? I don't know. But honestly, with the prices that you'll find this device, you'll likely find a 256 version for just a little bit more expensive. And it's just worth getting that extra storage and also getting the faster speeds. But either way, you're getting phenomenal performance out of these OnePlus 11. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is still a great performing chipset. It'll probably be a great performing chipset for at least another 3, 4, 5 years. So I don't want to get too carried away talking about these random terms and adjectives and verbs, how buttery smooth the OnePlus 11 experience is. Apps open up super quick and snappy. It's a flagship chipset from last year. Performance is really good. I don't know what else you want to hear. The performance is solid. If you're a gamer and want also a really good phone, the OnePlus 11 is one of those phones you really want to consider. If you're someone who's a more casual user and just uses basic, social media apps, or you're just a basic user who just opens up a lot of apps here and there and switches between apps really quickly, you're going to enjoy the performance coming out of the OnePlus 11. On my day-to-day experience for the last 2-3 weeks that I use this again, I personally didn't notice a difference from this to the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the S23 Ultra. They all felt just as snappy compared to the OnePlus 11. Now, where it will come down to whether you like this experience or not is definitely going to be Oxygen OS. So it is currently running Android 14 with that Oxygen OS 14 skin layered over top. And for the most part, you get a pretty similar experience to a typical other Android device. Now you get your app drawer, you get your home screen, your lock screen, your quick settings and notifications, and you also get the Google Discover page. But OnePlus throws in there are a couple extra features and tweaks and different animations compared to those other launchers. And for me, it's been a okay experience. I definitely don't think it's my favorite, especially specifically because I've run into a good amount of small minor bugs, like nothing deal breaking or game breaking that ends up resulting in the phone freezing up or crashing. It's just been small minor bugs that you've noticed and that act differently compared to other devices. So I feel like it's easier to just talk about those differences than it is to talk about what's the same, because I've already done a full review and it's very similar. There's small things that have changed from that full review. But for the most part, I guess some things that I will talk about is first on the lock screen. The only thing that's missing on this device compared to other Android devices is the fact that you can't customize the lock screen much, if at all. You can only really change the bottom quick launch apps, which even then you're very limited on which apps you can choose. So you can't change the clock style. You can't change the way notifications show up. That's another thing too. I still don't like the way notifications work on the OnePlus 11 with Oxygen OS. So basically, notifications will display on your lock screen. But after some time, or if you've already unlocked the device and you view the notification and then you close the device, that notification no longer shows on the lock screen. I don't know why. I haven't either interacted with it, responded to either what is a message, or opened up the app that notification came from. It'll just disappear. So it makes it look like those normal notifications. And so I end up forgetting about those notifications until later on when I actually go to continue and unlock my device and then notice at the top, there's icons up there with the fact that there's notifications. And some of the home screen settings I really like is that, one, it comes pre-stocked with the fact that you can customize your icons a bit. So you can either choose between 3 different styles or go into a custom style, which allows you to turn off the app names. So there's no actual name below each icon. I personally really like that. It just gives it a clean look and aesthetic. And I also like that you're able to enlarge the folders. So you can have a bunch of small folders if you want, or you can create and take up a larger space on your grid to enlarge that folder, which you can easily interact with and open up those different apps within that folder without having to actually open up the folder. Which, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of the way the animations work on this device. The folder animation isn't too bad, but one of the animations I don't like is when you're switching from horizontal to vertical orientation on YouTube. It just seems a little too slow. Like, it feels like it's trying to copy iOS, but it's not executing it properly, in my opinion. So the animation could be a little bit smoother there, but for the most part, animations do tend to be just a little bit slower, in my opinion, on the Auction OS system compared to other devices. You could go into developer settings and speed up the animations if you wanted to, but I like to keep things stock, so I'm not going to do that. So that's just the only other thing I notice as well with just the regular fluidity. They look pretty, don't get me wrong, they're just a little bit slower. And there's a few things I noticed with notifications that bother me. One is the design choice that they made. They made the X to clear notifications hovering over the bottom notification. So if you have a large amount of notifications at the very bottom, the X will overlap that last bottom notification. And sometimes it does get in the way. It sometimes doesn't allow you to see just 1 or 2 words because it's hovering over. And it's kind of annoying. I'm not sure why they did that, but that seems like an easy fix. And it's been like that since Android 13 as well. So I'm not sure why no one else has complained about it. But either way, they did fix one thing, which is that you're able to just swipe left or right. Regardless of which way you swipe, it'll clear the notification. So thank you, OnePlus, for doing that. I also noticed that with messages, sometimes it'll show the name twice of the person who sent you the message. Another issue I've been having is the modes, for some reason, don't tend to turn on exactly when you have them set to turn on, and also don't turn off when they're supposed to turn off. So my bedtime mode and my focus modes, sometimes it'll be 2-3 minutes after or 2-3 minutes into the time that's supposed to start and it hasn't started yet. So I have to either manually turn them on or manually turn them off. Auction OS does have pretty decent multitasking capabilities. You're able to use the typical picture-in-picture, but you are able to use their smart dock that allows you to drag and drop apps, quickly split the screen. So for me, I personally really like to just split YouTube at the top and then whatever other app at the bottom so I can browse pretty much in a normal aspect ratio. That's as far as deep as I'll go with the OnePlus 11 software because it's still relatively similar to the review that I made a couple months back, maybe like 6-7 months ago. So definitely check out that video if you want a more in-depth view and just overview of the different software features and experience. Just know that it's a good, solid software experience, but it does have its quirks that I noticed compared to other OS experiences. Now, as far as software updates and support, you still will be getting 3 years of major OS updates and then 4 years of security updates. Originally, it's 4 and 5, but it's been a year now, so you only get those 3 and 4 now, which is still a decent amount of time left. So if you pick this up now, you'll still be good till at least, 2027. So you'll be solid for quite a bit. So as far as biometrics, you do have facial recognition as well as a under-display optical fingerprint sensor. And honestly, both work pretty good. They get the job done. There is times with the facial recognition that it doesn't always recognize me, especially if you're in a dark environment, low light, it will struggle to find your face. Or if you're at a weird angle, it's not a 3D scanner or anything like that, so it's not able to get you at different angles. And the under display fingerprint sensor works pretty good as well. It's pretty fast and pretty speedy. I do like that you can change the animations of it though. So like you can change it from a couple, I think like 6 or 7 different styles of animations. As far as the cameras in the OnePlus 11, I'm just going to shoot up some samples for you guys to take a look for yourself and you can decide on your own what you think. But personally, I think the cameras do a decent job. They're definitely not the best cameras available on any system, on any phone available out there. When this phone came out last year, it was definitely, in my opinion, one of the, least effective and least pretty phones out there. It's got a style to it. If it's your style, then great. If not, then you're not going to like it. I think overall quality looks pretty good, but it's just the color styling, the color profile that it's doing, the post-processing that it's doing. It's not my personal favorite, but again, it may be yours. So you can take a look, you can decide what you think and make a choice for yourself. I think it does a decent job to get a decent quality photo. Video, it's up to you. Again, personally, it's again one of its weakest sides, even though it is able to record up to 8K 24 frames per second. But I don't care. I'm not going to use that, especially not at 24 frames per second. But I personally use 4K 30, and it's great. It gets the job done. Again, it looks pretty good overall as far as quality, but the color, again, it's up to you to decide if you like that or not. But for me, the main downside though with 4K 30 is the fact that you can't zoom in and be able to actually use the telephoto. So anything past 1x is all going to be digitally zoomed when using 4K 30. And the front-facing camera is, I think it's the weakest point of it as well. For video especially, because it's capped out at 1080p. So you can definitely notice the reduction in quality and reduction in sharpness. It just doesn't look as sharp compared to a 4K video from either the back camera of the OnePlus 11 or just something else on a different phone that does record 4K on the front. Photos don't look too bad in my opinion when it comes to the front-facing camera. Again, the quality, pretty good, but it comes down to the color styling that it does with the post-processing that OnePlus does. So you can decide again on your own if you like that or not. But for me personally, the OnePlus 11 cameras get the job done. They definitely aren't terrible, but it's just the color profiling that does that. Me personally, I'm not a huge fan of. As far as battery life, the OnePlus 11 does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and you won't have to worry about the battery life on the OnePlus 11. It does a phenomenal job lasting you pretty much the whole day. If you start early in the morning, say 6 in the morning, all the way to the afternoon, you probably won't have to plug in till about maybe 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Of course, it also depends on what you do on your device. Me personally, I'm able to get easily anywhere from 14 to 16 hours minimum of total usage up to a day of total usage. So that's pretty good. My screen on time, again, may vary day to day. Sometimes I get 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 hours screen on time. And again, it depends on what I do on my device. So everyone's usage will definitely vary, but I guarantee you that this phone will last you pretty much the whole day. And if for some reason it doesn't, OnePlus does include a Super VOOC charger in the box. So you're able to charge your device from like 0 to 5% all the way up to 100% in about roughly 30 to 35 minutes. It is super quick when it comes to the charging. So if for some reason, like I said, you do have to charge, you can rely on that charger to get you back up and running quickly and fast. The only downside is you don't have wireless charging. Of course, it all depends on if you do use that or not. Me personally, I don't actually use wireless charging much anymore. So I personally am okay with not having it. So in the end, the OnePlus 11 is without a doubt still a solid purchase in 2024. But should you go out and buy it, I personally think you should wait to see what the OnePlus 12 has to offer as far as pricing as well. I know the specs and pretty much it's already released in China, I think. And as of the recording of this video, it hasn't officially released in the US. I think it's still got a couple more days before it's officially released. But I don't know the pricing yet. So if the OnePlus 12 is just only a little bit more expensive, maybe $100 to $200 more, I might consider telling you to get that OnePlus 12 instead. But if it's $300 more of a difference to get the OnePlus 11 versus the OnePlus 12, I would say save those $300 and get the OnePlus 11 instead. It's still a really good phone to buy in 2024. So with that being said, hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and peace.